My name is Gilda, and I'm 28 years old. On my birthday last week, I received a card from my mother that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. Inside the pink envelope was a message that made my hands shake. You're adopted. We never loved you. Don't contact us again. 28 years of memories suddenly felt like lies. But what happened next revealed a conspiracy so twisted it made that cruel card seem like mercy compared to what my family had really planned. Before we dive into this shocking story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's experienced family betrayal? Hit that like button if you believe family should mean unconditional love, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless. Trust me, what my family did next will make you question everything you thought you knew about blood bonds. Let's get into how one birthday card exposed a $1 million conspiracy that had been brewing for years. The morning of my 28th birthday started like any other. I woke up in my small apartment in Denver expecting the usual phone calls from my parents and maybe lunch with my sister Rachel. I'd already bought ingredients to make my grandmother's chocolate cake recipe, the one she taught me before she passed away 6 months ago. The autumn sunlight streamed through my kitchen window as I sipped my coffee, checking my phone for birthday messages. Several friends had already texted, but nothing from family yet. That wasn't unusual, though. Mom always liked to call precisely at the time I was born, 10:37 in the morning. When the doorbell rang at 9, I assumed it was a delivery. Maybe Mom had sent flowers like she did every year. But instead of a cheerful bouquet, a stern-faced courier handed me a single pink envelope. "Gilda Morrison," he asked, checking his tablet. When I nodded, he had me sign before practically running back to his van. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, my mother's distinctive handwriting spelling out my name in careful cursive. Inside was a birthday card with a generic flower design, but when I opened it, my blood ran cold. The message inside wasn't typed or printed. It was handwritten in the same blue ink my mother always used. You're adopted. We never loved you. Don't contact us again. That was it. No explanation, no signature, just those 12 words that shattered my entire world. My hands trembled as I read it again and again, certain I must be misunderstanding. This had to be some kind of sick joke. I grabbed my phone and dialed my mother's number. "The number you have dialed has been disconnected." My father's phone gave the same message. Even Rachel's number was suddenly out of service. Panic rising in my throat, I threw on yesterday's clothes and drove the 20 minutes to my childhood home in Willowbrook subdivision. The tree-lined street looked exactly as it always had, except for one glaring difference. A bright red "for sale" sign stood in the front yard of the 2-story colonial where I'd grown up. The house looked abandoned, newspapers piling up on the porch I'd helped my father build when I was 12. I parked crooked against the curb and ran to the front door, my key sliding uselessly in a lock that had been changed. Through the living room window, I could see our furniture still there, but something was off. Pressing my face to the glass, I realized what was wrong. Every single photograph that had included me was gone. The mantelpiece that usually displayed 20 years of family photos now held only pictures of my parents and Rachel. The wall where my graduation photo had hung for 6 years showed only a faint outline where the frame had been. They hadn't just left, they had systematically erased me from the house. "Excuse me, you can't be here," a sharp voice called out. I turned to find a woman in a navy blazer approaching "real estate agent" written all over her perfectly styled appearance. "This is private property. The owners specifically said no one is allowed inside." The woman, whose name tag read Carla, held her phone like a weapon, clearly ready to call the police. "The owners are my parents," I said, my voice cracking. "I grew up in this house." Carla's expression shifted from professional concern to something darker. "I was told you might show up. The Morrison family made it very clear that their daughter is not welcome here." My legs felt weak as I stumbled back toward the sidewalk. That's when I spotted it in the garbage can at the curb, one corner of a picture frame sticking out from under a bag. With shaking hands, I pulled it free. It was our last family Christmas photo, the one where I wore the red sweater Grandma had knitted. Except my face had been scratched out with something sharp, leaving only a violent hole where I should have been. Behind me, Carla was speaking urgently into her phone. Yes, she's here, the unwanted one. What should I do? The words unwanted one echoed in my head as I drove to my best friend Melinda's apartment. We'd known each other since middle school. If anyone could help me make sense of this nightmare, it would be her. She answered the door already dressed for our birthday lunch plans, but her smile faltered when she saw my face. Gilda, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I thrust the card at her, watching her read those horrible words. But instead of the shock and outrage I expected, Melinda's shoulders sagged. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You knew, I whispered, the betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. How long have you known? Melinda bit her lip, tears forming in her eyes. Your mom called me 3 months ago, said there would be changes coming, that you might need a friend when the truth came out. I thought she meant they were getting divorced or something. I never imagined this. The room spun around me. 3 months. You've known something was wrong for 3 months and didn't tell me. Melinda reached for my hand, but I jerked away. She said if I warned you, if I said anything at all, they'd make sure my student loans never got paid off. Your family holds the note, Gilda. I couldn't lose everything. So you chose them over me, I said flatly. 20 years of friendship and you sold me out for money. Melinda's tears were flowing freely now. It's not like that. They said it was for your own good, that you'd understand eventually. Your mom made it sound like they were protecting you from something worse. I laughed bitterly. Protecting me? They disappeared overnight and left me a note saying they never loved me. What could be worse than that? I left Melinda crying in her doorway and drove to my bank, needing to ensure I could at least access my own money while I figured out what was happening. The ATM rejected my debit card 3 times before eating it entirely. Inside, I waited in line, my anxiety building with each passing minute. When I finally reached the teller, Dawn, who'd helped me open my first savings account, her face went pale at seeing me. Miss Morrison, I think you need to speak with the manager. The manager, a thin man named Howard, ushered me into his office with the demeanor of someone handling a bomb. Miss Morrison, I'm afraid there's been some unusual activity on your accounts. He turned his computer screen toward me, showing a 0 balance where my savings should have been. The joint account holders withdrew everything this morning. My parents. The account I'd never removed them from because I trusted them. $35,000, 5 years of careful saving gone. There's more. Howard continued, sliding a paper across his desk. We received this fraud alert about you yesterday. Your parents claim you've been stealing from family accounts for years. They've asked us to freeze any remaining assets and cooperate with investigators. The room tilted. My own parents had not only abandoned me, but were actively trying to destroy me. This is insane, I said. I need to access my money. This is my account too. Howard's expression was sympathetic but firm. I'm sorry, but with fraud allegations pending, I can't release any funds. Security is already on their way to escort you out. As 2 security guards appeared at the office door, I realized this wasn't just abandonment. This was a calculated attack designed to leave me with nothing. No family, no friends, no money, no home. But why? What had I done to deserve this? The security guards walked me out like a criminal, other customers staring and whispering. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, trying to think through the fog of shock and betrayal. There had to be more to this story, and I was going to find out what it was, even if it killed me. My next stop was Rachel's law firm downtown. If anyone in my family would give me answers, it would be my younger sister. We'd been close growing up, or at least I thought we had. She worked as a paralegal at Brennan and Associates, and I knew she'd be at her desk on a Friday morning. The security guard in the lobby recognized me from previous visits and waved me through to the elevators. But when I reached the 14th floor, something was wrong. The receptionist, usually friendly and chatty, took one look at me and immediately picked up her phone. Rachel Morrison, please. Your sister is here. She listened for a moment, then looked at me with a mixture of pity and fear. Miss Morrison says she doesn't have a sister. The words hit me like a slap. I pushed past the reception desk, heading for Rachel's cubicle, but 2 security guards materialized before I could get far. Ma'am, we're going to need you to leave. We have your photo on our restricted list. They had my photo. This had been planned. Through the glass partition, I could see Rachel watching from her desk, and when our eyes met, she actually smirked. My sweet little sister, who I'd helped with homework and protected from bullies, looked at me like I was garbage and smiled. As security marched me back to the elevators, a woman from accounting whispered as she passed, "She's been bragging all week about finally getting rid of the burden." I'm sorry. The elevator doors closed before I could ask what she meant. In the lobby, I overheard one guard tell the other, "That's the third place today we've had alerts about her. Whatever she did must have been serious." I sat in my car in the parking garage trying to make sense of it all. The adoption claim had to be the key. If I could prove it was a lie, maybe I could understand why they were doing this. The Denver Public Library had computers I could use to research adoption records. I spent 3 hours searching every database I could access. Colorado adoption records, interstate adoption registries, even international adoption sites. Nothing. There was no record of any adoption for a Gilda Morrison in the entire state. Growing desperate, I drove to Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital where I was born. The records department was closing, but I begged the clerk to help me. She took pity on my tear-stained face and pulled up my birth records. There it was, in black and white. Mother Diane Morrison. Father Richard Morrison. Live birth 7 pounds 3 ounces. I was their biological child. The adoption story was a complete fabrication. But why would they lie about something so easy to disprove? My phone, which had been silent all day, except for birthday wishes from acquaintances who didn't know my world was ending, finally rang with an unknown number. I answered desperately, hoping someone from my family had changed their mind. "Gilda." The voice was my Uncle Carl, my father's brother. "Thank God you answered. Can you meet me at Murphy's Diner on Colfax? Don't tell anyone where you're going." Carl was the black sheep of the Morrison family, a jazz musician who'd chosen art over the family construction business. We'd always gotten along, bonding over being the two family members who didn't quite fit the Morrison mold. Murphy's Diner was nearly empty at 4 in the afternoon. Carl sat in a back booth looking older than his 55 years. He stood when he saw me pulling me into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, kiddo. I just found out what they're doing." We sat down, and Carl ordered coffee for both of us with shaking hands. "None of it's true, is it?" I asked. "The adoption story." Carl shook his head. "You're as much a Morrison as any of us. More than most, actually. You're the only one who inherited your grandmother's kindness." "Then why?" I begged. "Why are they doing this to me?" Carl looked around nervously before leaning closer. "It's about money. It's always been about money with them. Your grandmother's will. She died 6 months ago, right? Well, there's a sealed codicil that gets read in 5 days. Word is she left everything to you, and I mean everything. The construction company, the real estate holdings, the investment accounts. We're talking $12 million, Gilda." The coffee cup slipped from my numb fingers, brown liquid spreading across the table. "That's impossible. Grandma would have told me." Carl grabbed napkins, mopping up the spill. "She couldn't. It was part of the trust structure. But your father found out through his lawyer connections. Diane went ballistic. They've been planning this ever since, trying to find a way to discredit you before the will reading. If they can make you seem unstable criminal or get you to sign away your rights, they get everything." "But the adoption lie won't hold up," I protested. "I already have my birth certificate." Carl's expression darkened. "That's not the story they're spreading. Rachel's been telling everyone you're actually the product of an affair Diane had. Says Richard isn't your real father, that they've been hiding it out of shame. She's shown people a fake DNA test and everything." My own sister was spreading lies about our mother to steal my inheritance. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. "I need to warn you," Carl continued, glancing at his watch. "This is just the beginning. They've got plans to escalate. Your job, your apartment, your reputation, they're going after everything. Rich hired some very bad people to help make you disappear before that will gets read." He slid a business card across the table. "This is a lawyer friend of mine, not Morrison family connected. Call her, and Gilda. Don't go home tonight. It's not safe." But I had to go to work first. My job at Brennan Marketing was the one stable thing left in my life. I'd been there for 3 years, working my way up to senior account manager. My boss, Miranda Chen, had always been supportive. Surely the chaos of my family couldn't have reached my professional life already. I was wrong. The moment I badged into the building, security stopped me. Miss Morrison, you need to go to Human Resources immediately. The HR director, Paula Martinez, was waiting with my boss and 2 security guards. On the desk between us was a stack of papers I'd never seen before. Gilda, we received some very disturbing documentation this afternoon. Paula began, her voice careful and cold. These invoices show systematic embezzlement from client accounts. Your signature is on every one. I grabbed the papers, scanning them in disbelief. They were forgeries, but good ones. My signature had been copied perfectly onto invoices for services never rendered, payments directed to accounts I didn't recognize. These are fake, I said, my voice rising. Someone forged these. Check the dates. I was on vacation for half of these. Miranda wouldn't meet my eyes. The evidence is overwhelming, Gilda. We've already contacted the clients to verify, and they're threatening to sue. We have no choice but to terminate you immediately. Security will escort you to clean out your desk. The humiliation of being marched through the office I'd given 3 years of my life to was almost unbearable. Coworkers averted their eyes as security watched me pack my personal items into a cardboard box. My professional awards, the photos from company parties, the coffee mug that said "World's Best Account Manager" that my team had given me last Christmas. All of it dumped unceremoniously into a box like garbage. My computer access was already revoked. My company phone was confiscated. 3 years of building a career destroyed in 3 minutes. In the parking garage, my hands shook so badly I dropped my car keys twice. When I finally made it home to my apartment complex, I knew something was wrong before I even reached my door. My landlord, Mr. Peterson, stood in the hallway with 2 maintenance workers. An official-looking notice was already taped to my door. 24 hours, he said without preamble. That's all I can give you. Your parents called, said you're dangerous, unstable. Other tenants are already complaining, saying they don't feel safe. Wow, what other tenants? I demanded. Who complained? Mr. Peterson shifted uncomfortably. I can't say, but multiple people called, said you've been acting erratically, making threats. One person even said they saw you with a weapon. This was insane. I barely knew my neighbors, had never had a single complaint in 2 years of living here. You know me, Mr. Peterson. Have I ever caused any problems, ever been late with rent? This is all lies. I'm sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all. But I can't take chances with the safety of other residents. You have until tomorrow night to vacate, or I'll have the sheriff remove you. And before you ask, your security deposit is forfeit due to breach of the lease terms regarding dangerous behavior. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the hallway of what would soon be my former home. Inside my apartment, I collapsed on the couch, finally allowing the tears I'd been holding back all day to fall. In 12 hours, I'd lost my family, my best friend, my money, my job, and now my home. All because of an inheritance I hadn't even known existed. Uncle Carl was right. This was just the beginning. If they could do all this in one day, what would tomorrow bring? I looked around my small apartment at the life I'd built for myself, and wondered if I'd even survive long enough to see that will reading. One thing was certain, my family wasn't just trying to disinherit me. They were trying to destroy me completely. I barely slept that night, jumping at every sound in the hallway. Uncle Carl's warning echoed in my head. By 6 in the morning, I was packing everything I could fit into my car: photo albums, important documents, clothes, anything that mattered. I was loading a box of books when I heard footsteps on the stairs. My sister Rachel appeared at the top of the landing, flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd stepped out of a mob movie. One had a neck tattoo creeping above his collar. The other cracked his knuckles as he stared at me. "Hello, Gilda," Rachel said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She wore a designer suit I'd never seen before, already spending money she expected to inherit. "These are my associates, Joey and Marcus. We need to have a little chat about your future." I tried to move toward my apartment door, but Joey blocked my path. He smelled like cigarettes and violence. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his grin revealing a gold tooth. Rachel pulled a folder from her purse. "I have some papers here that need your signature. Just a simple document saying you relinquish any claim to grandmother's estate. Sign it and all this unpleasantness goes away. You can start fresh somewhere else. Maybe California." I hear the weather's nice. I laughed, the sound harsh in the narrow hallway. You must think I'm stupid. I'm not signing anything. Rachel's perfectly painted smile faltered. You don't understand your position. We've already laid the groundwork. Half of Denver thinks you're a mentally unstable criminal. Who's going to believe you over us? The truth will, I said, standing straighter despite my fear. Birth certificates don't lie. DNA tests can be verified. Your whole story falls apart under scrutiny. Marcus stepped closer, and I could see the bulge of a weapon under his jacket. Lady, you should really reconsider. Accidents happen all the time. People fall downstairs, get hit by cars. Tragic stuff. Are you threatening me? I asked, pulling out my phone. Because I'm recording this entire conversation. That was a lie. My phone was dead, had been since midnight, but they didn't know that. Rachel's face flushed with anger. You always were too clever for your own good, just like grandmother. Well, look where it got her. Dead and buried, leaving her money to an ungrateful brat who probably hastened her death. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. How dare you? I loved her. I was the only one who visited her in the nursing home. Rachel laughed, the sound cruel and sharp. Visits you can't prove. See, we've already spoken to the staff. They don't remember you being there much at all. Amazing what people forget when properly motivated. You're bribing people to lie. I couldn't hide my shock. The sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms had become a monster. It's not lying if they simply don't recall, Rachel said smoothly. But there is one more thing. Dr. Patricia Lane, you remember her. The family therapist Mom made us see after Dad's drinking problem. She's prepared a comprehensive evaluation of your mental state, paranoid delusions, violent tendencies, pathological lying. She's very concerned about your well-being. I haven't seen Dr. Lane in 10 years, I protested. That won't hold up in court. Joey laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You'd be surprised what holds up when the right people say it. Now, are you going to sign, or do we need to explore other options? I made a quick decision. Sometimes the smartest thing is to run. I shoved past Joey, surprising him enough that he stumbled. Racing to my car, I heard Rachel shouting behind me. This isn't over, Gilda. You can't run forever. I peeled out of the parking lot, catching a glimpse of Marcus reaching under his jacket in my rearview mirror. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove, taking random turns in case they followed. Where could I go? Who could I trust? Then I remembered Vera Chen, my college roommate. We'd stayed close after graduation, and most importantly, she had no connection to my family. Her mother, Constance, was a lawyer, a successful one who specialized in estate law. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it would be them. Vera answered on the third ring, her voice foggy with sleep. Gilda, it's barely 7. What's wrong? I need help, I said, the words tumbling out. My family is trying to destroy me. Can I come over? Please? There must have been something in my voice because Vera immediately said, Of course, come now, I'll make coffee. 20 minutes later, I stood on Vera's doorstep with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box looking like a refugee from my own life. Vera took one look at me and pulled me into a hug. Oh, honey, what happened to you? The kindness in her voice broke the dam, and I sobbed on her shoulder. Months of grief over my grandmother mixing with the fresh wounds of betrayal. She guided me inside where her mother Constance was already awake, dressed in a silk robe and radiating the kind of calm authority that made her a formidable lawyer. Over strong coffee and tissues, I told them everything. The birthday card, the lies about adoption, the inheritance, the systematic destruction of my life. Constance took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she set down her pen with a look of cold fury. This is a coordinated conspiracy to commit fraud. They're not just trying to steal your inheritance. They're committing multiple felonies in the process. Can you help me? I asked, hope flaring for the first time in 24 hours. Constance smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted prey. Not only can I help you, I'm going to enjoy it. I've seen families do terrible things for money, but this level of cruelty is remarkable. We're going to document everything, build a case, and ensure you get what your grandmother wanted you to have. I can't pay you. I admitted, shame burning my cheeks. They took everything. Constance waved dismissively. This is pro bono. Consider it my contribution to justice. Besides, when you inherit $12 million, you can make a very generous donation to my favorite charity. She stood suddenly all business. Vera set up the guest room. Gilda, you're staying here where it's safe. I need to make some calls. The will reading is in 4 days and we have work to do. The next 2 days blurred together in a haze of legal preparation and devastating discoveries. Constance hired a private investigator named Blake Sullivan, a former FBI agent with kind eyes and a talent for uncovering secrets. What he found made the betrayal even worse. My family was in desperate financial trouble. My father's construction company was hemorrhaging money due to his gambling addiction, a problem he'd supposedly conquered years ago. He owed $3 million to some very dangerous people who were growing impatient. Rachel's husband, Bryce, the Golden Boy investment banker, was under SEC investigation for insider trading. Their house of cards was about to collapse, taking their million-dollar lifestyle with it. My mother had maxed out credit cards I didn't even know existed, maintaining a facade of wealth while drowning in debt. They needed grandmother's money not just to maintain their lifestyle, but to survive. This explains the desperation, Blake said, showing us financial records that painted a picture of looming disaster. They're not just greedy, they're facing complete ruin. Your inheritance is their only hope of avoiding bankruptcy and possibly prison. The social media assassination continued while we worked. My Facebook filled with posts I hadn't made talking about drug use, mental breakdowns, and threats against my family. Photos were doctored to show me in compromising positions. A fake dating profile appeared soliciting dangerous encounters. Local news picked up the story of the unstable woman harassing prominent Denver family, complete with an interview where my mother dabbed at dry eyes and spoke about her fear for her safety. "We just want our daughter to get help," she told the reporter, managing to look both concerned and terrified. "We're praying she doesn't hurt herself or others." The reporter, a blonde woman with too much hairspray, ate it up. The segment ended with my photo and a request for anyone who saw me to contact authorities immediately. On the third night, everything escalated. I was in Vera's kitchen helping with dinner when police lights filled the windows. 3 officers stood at the door with a warrant for my arrest. The charge was assault. According to the complaint, I'd attacked Rachel at her home, leaving her with a black eye and broken ribs. The alleged attack happened while I was sitting in Constance's office, reviewing legal documents with 3 witnesses present. This is obviously false," Constance told the lead officer, a sergeant named Williams. "My client hasn't left this house in 2 days. I have security footage proving it." Sergeant Williams looked uncomfortable but firm. "Ma'am, I have a valid warrant. She needs to come with us. You can sort this out with the judge." The handcuffs were cold against my wrists. Vera was crying. Constance was already on the phone with a judge she knew. The ride to the station was surreal, watching the city pass by through the metal grate that separated criminals from officers. I spent 18 hours in a holding cell that smelled like despair and industrial disinfectant. My cellmate was a woman named Darla, who'd been arrested for prostitution and who listened to my story with surprising sympathy. "Honey, I've seen people do awful things for money, but your own family? That's cold." When Constance finally got me released, she was incandescent with rage. "They had medical records," she said as we drove away from the jail. "Falsified but convincing enough for a Friday night warrant. Your sister actually let someone hit her to make this look real. She let someone hurt her just to frame me." I couldn't process that level of dedication to destroying me. Constance's laugh was bitter. "According to the security footage from the emergency room, your brother-in-law Bryce was the one who brought her in. Draw your own conclusions about who inflicted the injuries." The idea that Rachel would let her husband beat her just to set me up was so twisted I couldn't speak. What had money turned my family into? We had 1 day left before the will reading, 1 day to prove the truth and expose their lies. But my family had 1 more card to play, and it was their cruelest yet. Constance received a call from the courthouse. An emergency hearing had been scheduled. My parents were petitioning to have me involuntarily committed for psychiatric evaluation. If they succeeded, I'd miss the will reading, and with Dr. Patricia Lane's false testimony, I might never get out. This is it, Constance said, her war face on. This is where we make our stand. They've overplayed their hand, and tomorrow we're going to expose every lie, every crime, every betrayal. But Gilda, I need you to be strong. They're going to say terrible things. Can you handle it? I thought about my grandmother, about her quiet strength and unwavering love. I thought about the birthday card meant to break me. I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I still had to fight for. I can handle it, I said, meaning every word. They wanted a war. Tomorrow they get one. The psychiatric commitment hearing was scheduled for 9 in the morning at the Denver County Courthouse. I dressed carefully in the conservative navy suit Vera had lent me, trying to look as sane and stable as possible. Constance had prepared me for what to expect, but nothing could have prepared me for seeing my entire family sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom. My parents, Rachel, even aunts and uncles I hadn't seen in years. They'd all come to watch my destruction. Dr. Patricia Lane took the stand first. I remembered her as a kindly woman who'd helped our family through my father's drinking years ago. Now she sat rigid in the witness chair, avoiding my eyes as she presented a fictional history of my supposed mental illness. Miss Morrison has exhibited signs of paranoid schizophrenia for years, she testified, reading from notes that shook in her hands. Her delusions center around persecution by her family. She believes they're trying to steal from her, that they've abandoned her. Classic paranoid fantasies. When did you last treat Miss Morrison? The family's lawyer, a shark named Davidson, asked smoothly. Dr. Lane hesitated just a fraction too long. Our sessions have been ongoing. The family has kept me informed of her deteriorating condition. Constance made a note. That hesitation would be important later. And in your professional opinion, does Miss Morrison pose a danger to herself or others? Dr. Lane's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I believe she needs immediate intervention before someone gets hurt. My mother testified next, and her performance was Oscar-worthy. She cried on cue, voice-breaking, as she described my violent outbursts and delusional accusations. She thinks we're not her real parents, my mother sobbed. She's created this elaborate fantasy where we're trying to hurt her. We just want our daughter to get help. Watching her lie so convincingly, I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. Had every hug, every "I love you," every proud smile been an act? Rachel's testimony was even worse. She came to court with visible bruises, moving stiffly as if in pain. She attacked me, Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. My own sister. She was screaming about money, about grandmother. She's completely lost touch with reality. The bruises looked real. The pain in her voice sounded genuine. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed her myself. My father kept his testimony brief, the disappointed patriarch forced to confront his child's mental illness. We've tried everything, he said, his voice heavy with manufactured sorrow. But Gilda refuses to accept help. For her own safety and the safety of others, she needs to be committed. He looked at me then, and for just a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, regret, or just satisfaction that their plan was working. The judge, an elderly woman named Harrison, seemed sympathetic to their cause. She nodded along with the testimony, occasionally shooting concerned glances my way. My family had chosen their venue well. Judge Harrison had a reputation for erring on the side of caution in mental health cases. If someone might be dangerous, she'd rather commit them than risk tragedy. The morning testimony painted a picture of a delusional, violent woman who desperately needed psychiatric intervention. By lunch break, I could see court officers positioning themselves to take me into custody the moment the judge ruled, but Constance had saved her ammunition for the afternoon. Your Honor, she began, standing with the confidence of someone holding a royal flush. Before we proceed, I'd like to present some evidence that speaks to the credibility of the witnesses we've heard from today. Judge Harrison frowned but nodded. Proceed, counselor, but be brief. Constance played the video first, security footage from her home showing me sitting in her office at the exact time Rachel claimed I was attacking her. The timestamp was clear. The quality was perfect. As you can see, Your Honor, my client couldn't have assaulted her sister. She was with me reviewing legal documents. The courtroom stirred. Rachel's face went white. Davidson objected, but the damage was done. If they'd lied about the assault, what else had they lied about? I'd also like to submit these phone records. Constance continued handing documents to the clerk. They show multiple calls between Dr. Patricia Lane and the Morrison family in the past week. Interesting considering she testified that Miss Morrison has been her patient for years. Yet there are no billing records, no session notes, no insurance claims. Almost as if these therapy sessions never happened. Dr. Lane shifted in her seat, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool courtroom. Judge Harrison's expression had changed from sympathetic to suspicious. Dr. Lane, do you have treatment records for Miss Morrison? The psychiatrist stammered, They're confidential. I didn't bring them. Constance smiled like a cat with a mouse. How convenient. Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to subpoena these supposed records. Oh, that won't be necessary, a new voice said from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned to see Mr. Sterling, my grandmother's lawyer, entering with a security guard and a sealed box. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption, but I have evidence relevant to these proceedings. May I approach? Judge Harrison, now thoroughly intrigued, waved him forward. Mr. Sterling was in his 70s, dignified in a three-piece suit that had probably cost more than my car. Your Honor, I represent the estate of Rose Morrison. The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow, but given today's proceedings, I believe it's crucial to share some information now. Davidson leaped to his feet. Objection. This is a psychiatric commitment, hearing not a probate matter. Judge Harrison silenced him with a look. I'll decide what's relevant, counselor. Continue, Mr. Sterling. The old lawyer opened his box with ceremony, removing a tablet. Mrs. Morrison left video messages to be played under certain circumstances. One of those circumstances was if any family member attempted to have Gilda Morrison declared incompetent or committed before the will reading. He connected the tablet to the courtroom's display system. My grandmother's face filled the screen and my heart clenched. She looked frailer than I remembered, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. Hello, my dear ones. My grandmother's recorded voice filled the courtroom. If you're watching this, then I was right about your intentions. I'm disappointed but not surprised. Gilda, my sweet girl, I'm sorry for what you're going through. But don't worry. Grandmother has one last card to play. She smiled, then the mischievous grin I remembered from childhood. To the rest of you, greedy vultures know this I've been watching. I know about Richard's gambling, about Diane's affairs, about Rachel's lies and Bryce's crimes. I know everything. The courtroom erupted. My mother screamed objections. My father's face turned purple. Rachel tried to leave, but court officers blocked the doors. Judge Harrison banged her gavel repeatedly. Order, I will have order. My grandmother continued, unperturbed by the chaos she'd caused. I hired investigators 2 years ago when I first suspected your true natures. Every crime, every betrayal, every cruel act has been documented. Mr. Sterling has copies of everything. Oh, and Dr. Lane, the $50,000 they paid you to lie has been traced. I hope it was worth your license. Dr. Lane made a small wounded sound and slumped in the witness chair. The video wasn't done. As for my will, yes, I left everything to Gilda. She's the only one who loved me for me, not my money. But there's a clause you should know about. If any family member attempts to contest the will or harm Gilda in any way, they forfeit their entire inheritance. Not just from me, but from the family trust going back 3 generations. You'll lose everything. My grandmother leaned closer to the camera. Gilda, sweetheart, be strong. The money isn't your real inheritance. It's the knowledge that you're nothing like them. You have my heart, my integrity, my strength. Use the money to do good, to become who you're meant to be. And remember, I love you. I've always loved you. That was never a lie. The screen went dark. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. My mother was crying real tears now. My father stared at his hands. Rachel looked like she'd been slapped. Judge Harrison cleared her throat. Well, this certainly changes things. Mr. Davidson, do your clients wish to continue with this commitment petition? Davidson huddled with my family, their whispers harsh and desperate. Finally, he stood. We withdraw the petition, Your Honor. I thought you might, Judge Harrison said dryly. This case is dismissed, and Mr. Davidson, I'll be referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury fraud and abuse of process. Dr. Lane, please remain. The bailiff will have some questions for you. But there was still one more betrayal waiting. As we left the courtroom, my mother approached. Her makeup was ruined, her perfect facade cracked. Gilda, wait. Please, let me explain. Against Constance's advice, I stopped. Some part of me, the little girl who'd once believed in her mother's love, needed to hear what she'd say. Can we talk? My mother asked. Privately, just for a few minutes. Constance started to object, but I held up my hand. It's okay. I'll meet you outside. My mother led me to a quiet corner of the courthouse lobby. For a moment, she just looked at me and I saw something that might have been regret in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to go this far. We just needed the money so badly. So, you decided to destroy me? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. You told me I was adopted? You said you never loved me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. I'm a terrible mother. But your father owes money to dangerous people. They threatened to hurt Rachel. We were desperate. She reached into her purse, pulling out a single sheet of paper. I know I have no right to ask, but if you could just sign this, it's a loan agreement. You'd still get most of the inheritance. We just need enough to pay off the debts. I looked at the paper. It wasn't a loan agreement. It was a power of attorney document that would give my parents complete control over my inheritance. Even now, even after being caught, she was still trying to con me. The last shred of hope I'd held, the tiny belief that maybe she'd loved me just a little, crumbled to dust. You're recording this, aren't you? I said, sudden understanding dawning. You're hoping I'll say something you can use. That's why you wanted privacy. My mother's tears stopped as if someone had turned off a faucet. Her expression hardened. You always were too smart for your own good, just like Mother. She poisoned you against us from the beginning. No, I said, standing to leave. You poisoned yourselves. Grandmother just made sure you couldn't poison me too. As I walked away, my mother called after me. You'll regret this, Gilda. Family is everything. Without us, you're nothing. I turned back one last time. I'd rather be nothing than be like you. Outside, Constance was waiting with Vera and Blake. They'd been worried, ready to charge in if needed. I'm okay, I told them. It's over. It's finally over. But I was wrong. The real confrontation would come tomorrow at the will reading, and my family still had one more desperate play to make. The morning of the will reading dawned crisp and clear, one of those perfect Denver autumn days that made the mountains look close enough to touch. I dressed carefully in a black suit, thinking of my grandmother as I fastened the pearl necklace she'd given me for my 16th birthday. Constance and Blake flanked me as we entered the law offices of Sterling Pemberton and Associates, their presence a comfort against whatever last-minute drama my family might attempt. The conference room was already full when we arrived. My entire family sat on one side of the massive oak table, their lawyers creating a wall of expensive suits. They looked different than they had just days ago. My father's usual commanding presence had deflated, leaving him looking older and somehow smaller. My mother clutched her purse like a lifeline, her knuckles white. Rachel wouldn't meet my eyes, her bruises fading to ugly yellow and green. Even the extended family members who'd come to support them looked uncomfortable, perhaps realizing they'd backed the wrong horse. Mr. Sterling entered precisely at 10, followed by 2 security guards and a court reporter. Good morning, everyone. We're here for the reading of Rose Morrison's last will and testament. Before we begin, I must remind you that this document is legally binding and has been thoroughly validated. Any attempts to contest it have specific consequences outlined within. He looked directly at my family as he spoke. Several of them shifted in their seats. Furthermore, Mr. Sterling continued, opening a leather folder. Mrs. Morrison requested that her final message be played before the reading of the specific bequests. He activated the screen on the wall, and once again, my grandmother appeared. This time, she was in her garden, the roses she loved blooming behind her. She looked healthier here, more like the grandmother I remembered from before the cancer. My dear family, she began, her voice warm but firm. If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you're about to learn some hard truths. I've watched you all for years, seeing greed corrupt what should have been love. Richard, my son, you chose gambling over your daughter's college fund. Diane, you chose status over substance affairs over loyalty. Rachel, you learned too well from your parents becoming manipulative and cruel. The rest of you enabled them choosing comfort over conscience. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But Gilda, my precious granddaughter, you remained pure despite their influence. Every Sunday you visited me, not for money, not for favors, but because you loved me. You held my hand through chemo read to me when my eyes failed and never once asked about inheritance. You are what this family should have been. The video continued for 20 minutes, detailing each family member's betrayals with surgical precision. Hidden debts, secret affairs, tax evasion embezzled funds from the family business. My grandmother had known everything and documented it all. By the end, my family looked like they'd been flayed alive. Even their lawyers seemed uncomfortable with the depths of their clients' deceptions. When the screen finally went dark, Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. Now to the distribution of assets. He read through the minor bequests first. Token amounts to distant relatives' specific items to household staff who'd been kind to her. Then came the meat of it. To my son, Richard Morrison, and his wife, Diane Morrison, I leave the sum of $1 each, may it be the last money you ever steal. To my granddaughter, Rachel Morrison Whitman, I leave my collection of mirrors so she might finally see herself clearly. Rachel made a choked sound. My parents sat frozen. Mr. Sterling continued. To my granddaughter, Gilda Marie Morrison, I leave the remainder of my estate, including but not limited to Morrison Construction and Development, all real estate holdings, all investment accounts, and all personal property not otherwise specified. The total value of the estate is approximately $12.3 million. The room exploded. My father slammed his fist on the table. This is insane! I'm her son. That company is mine by rights. Davidson tried to calm him, but my father was beyond reason. That ungrateful witch, I'm glad she's dead. The court reporter typed every word. My mother turned on me, her face twisted with rage. You poisoned her against us. You manipulated a sick old woman. Enough! Mr. Sterling's voice cracked like a whip. Need I remind you of the clause regarding contesting this? Will any family member who challenges this distribution forfeits all claims to the Morrison Family Trust going back generations. That includes the house you live in, Richard, which is held by the trust. Challenge this will and you'll be homeless by evening. That silenced them, but their hatred was palpable. Rachel's husband, Bryce, suddenly stood. What about the FBI investigation? Grandmother mentioned documentation of crimes. What happens to that? Mr. Sterling smiled coldly. That depends entirely on how the family behaves going forward. Mrs. Morrison instructed me to turn over all evidence to law enforcement if any harm comes to Miss Gilda Morrison. Consider it insurance. So, we're supposed to just roll over. Rachel snarled, her mask completely gone. Let her take everything while we lose it all. Blake spoke for the first time. You already lost it all. You lost it the moment you chose greed over family. The money was never yours. It was Rose's, and she gave it to the only person who treated her like a grandmother instead of an ATM. The signing of documents took another hour. My hand shook as I wrote my name again and again, officially becoming the owner of a construction empire I'd never wanted, and wealth I'd never dreamed of. With each signature, my family's faces grew darker. By the end, they looked like strangers. Perhaps they always had been. As we prepared to leave, my Uncle Carl approached. He'd been silent throughout the reading, sitting apart from the others. Gilda, he said quietly, I'm proud of you. Mother would be too. If you need anything, especially help with the business, call me. I may be the family disappointment, but I still know construction. It was the only kindness from any blood relative, and I treasured it. Outside the building, Constance immediately took charge. First things first. We're getting you proper security. Blake will arrange it. Second, we're moving you somewhere safe while we deal with the legal fallout. Your family may be temporarily muzzled, but desperate people do desperate things. She was right. Over the next weeks, the family empire unraveled spectacularly. The FBI arrested my father 2 days after the will reading. His gambling had led him to launder money through the construction company, and grandmother's investigators had documented everything. He was looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. My mother filed for divorce before he was even arraigned, trying to salvage what she could. But the affairs grandmother had mentioned included one with my father's business partner who'd been embezzling with her help. She was arrested the following week. Rachel's fall was perhaps the most dramatic. The bruises she'd given herself to frame me became evidence in her own assault trial. Bryce, facing insider trading charges and desperate to make a deal, testified that she'd ordered him to hit her. The same emergency room video that was supposed to prove I'd attacked her instead showed her directing him where to strike for maximum effect. The press had a field day. Heiress beats herself for billions made headlines across the state. Dr. Patricia Lane lost her license and faced criminal charges for accepting bribes to provide false testimony. Her practice collapsed overnight. The other family members who'd testified against me faced perjury charges. One by one, the conspirators fell like dominoes, each revelation worse than the last. The Denver society that had embraced them now shunned them completely. But I took no joy in their downfall. Each arrest, each headline, each revelation just deepened my grief. These people had been my world, my foundation, my identity. Discovering it was all built on lies left me adrift. The money felt like blood money tainted by the ugliness it had revealed. For weeks, I couldn't bring myself to touch any of it beyond basic living expenses. Vera and Constance became my anchors during those dark days. They helped me find a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Winters, who specialized in family trauma. "You're grieving," she explained during one session. "Not just your grandmother, but the family you thought you had. It's normal to feel lost." Slowly, with her help, I began to process the betrayal and plan a future. 6 months after the will reading, I officially took control of Morrison Construction. Uncle Carl had been invaluable teaching me the business while helping clean out the corruption. We discovered my father had been skimming for years, forcing legitimate employees to participate or lose their jobs. I made it my mission to make things right, paying back what had been stolen and promoting the honest workers my father had overlooked. I sold the family mansion, unable to bear living in a shrine to lies. Instead, I bought a modest house in a different neighborhood and converted grandmother's garden roses to my own yard. Her real legacy lived in those flowers and the beauty that persisted despite harsh conditions. I donated $1 million to establish the Rose Morrison Center for Family Trauma Survivors, a place where others dealing with similar betrayals could find support. My relationship with Blake evolved from professional to personal. He'd seen me at my worst and stayed offering quiet support and terrible jokes when I needed them most. Our first official date was at Murphy's Diner, where Uncle Carl had first told me the truth. It felt fitting to create new memories in places marked by old pain. A year after that horrible birthday, I received a letter. My mother had written from federal prison where she was serving 5 years. The letter was full of justifications and accusations, ending with a demand that I put money in her commissary account. I threw it away unread. Some bridges once burned should stay ash. Rachel tried to contact me through social media, creating fake accounts to send messages about how I'd ruined her life. I blocked each one and felt nothing. The business thrived under honest leadership. Morrison Construction became known for integrity and fair dealing, the opposite of what it had been. I promoted Maria Gonzalez, a project manager my father had repeatedly passed over to CEO. She had the expertise I lacked and the ethics my father had never possessed. I remained owner but focused on the charitable foundation, finding purpose in helping others escape toxic families. 2 years later, I stood in the cemetery on grandmother's birthday, placing fresh roses on her grave. The headstone read, "Rose Morrison, beloved grandmother, seeker of truth." I told her about the company's success, the families we'd helped, the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. "You saved me," I whispered, "not with money, but with truth. You showed me that real family isn't about blood. It's about choice." Blake waited by the car, understanding my need for private goodbye. We were getting married next month, a small ceremony with only chosen family attending. Vera would be my maid of honor. Constance would walk me down the aisle. Uncle Carl would play jazz at the reception. It would be perfect because it would be real, built on love instead of lies, choice instead of obligation. As I walked back to my future, I thought about that birthday card that had started everything. "You're adopted. We never loved you. Don't contact us again." Every word had been a lie, but in trying to destroy me with lies, they'd freed me to find truth. The family I'd lost had never really existed. The family I'd found chosen and cherished was worth more than any inheritance. Sometimes the greatest gift is discovering who truly loves you. Sometimes freedom comes disguised as cruelty. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out what really matters. My grandmother knew this. She'd orchestrated not just a wealth transfer, but a transformation. In trying to steal my inheritance, my family had given me something priceless, the knowledge that I was nothing like them and everything like the grandmother who'd loved me enough to save me. That's the real inheritance she left me. Not the money or the business or the properties. She left me the truth, and with it the freedom to become who I was meant to be. And that more than $12 million was worth everything I'd endured to receive it. Looking back, would I change anything? Would I wish for a loving family who'd celebrated my birthday instead of using it to attack? Part of me says yes. But the stronger part, the part grandmother nurtured, says no. Because without the pain, I wouldn't have found my purpose. Without the betrayal, I wouldn't have discovered my strength. Without losing my biological family, I wouldn't have found my chosen one. So here's my question for you. Have you ever discovered that the people who were supposed to love you most were the ones trying to harm you? How did you find the strength to break free and build something better? Share your story in the comments below. And if you're currently trapped in a toxic family situation, remember, this blood doesn't make family love does. You deserve people who celebrate your existence, not plot your destruction. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of triumph over betrayal. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in dealing with family dysfunction. Your support helps us reach more people who need these messages of hope and survival. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to breakthrough. Remember, sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the family you're born into. Until next time, keep choosing love, keep choosing truth, and keep choosing yourself. You're worth it. Take care and know that somewhere out there your chosen family is waiting to find you.